Hello and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm Aishwarya Kulkarni, a student of Masters of Urban Design from SPA Bhopal, and today I will be presenting my paper named Vulnerabilities, Contestations and Resilience in Rapid Urbanization, a case of women of Chandrawal village in New Delhi. Urban villages have a very different connotation in India and abroad. While they're comfortable, medium density, well planned housing abroad, urban villages in India are original villages that have conformed themselves to the urbanization around them. In India, there are existing pockets of old villages that have gotten crammed among the rapidly rising city around them. Manu Agarwal calls urban villages an oxymoron as they contradict the very essence of their characteristics. She explains how Delhi is a classic example of urban sprawl that has been caused by population growth. In the 2 decades between 1971 and 1991, Delhi's population increased by 4.8 million, with the city's sprawl extended by 239 square kilometers, a whooping increase of 53% in area to accommodate the new large population. The term Lal Dora was first used in the year 1908. It is a name classification given to that part of the village land which is a part of the village abadi or habitation. The urban village merges with the urban ward administratively as soon as it gets notified. When this happens, the panchayats are superseded, and in case of Delhi, DDA acquires the land for development works. The Municipal Corporation of Delhi then deals with supplying infrastructural facilities and is responsible for maintenance and upkeep. While this process can take up to a decade or more, the vested interest of politicians, commercial investors, and other stakeholders who wish to make profit come into picture. In the pursuit of making business, non-contextual land uses are often designated, and it leads to disruption of the existing urban fabric. Since these rural pockets are not well integrated in the planning city fabric, they're subjected to market forces, manipulations, and speculations, and may remain underdeveloped or worse, develop in a direction which kills the existing rich traditional fabric of the rural communities. The precinct that I have taken to study is Chandrawal village. Nestled between the busy streets claimed by merry street shoppers of Kamala Nagar in New Delhi, the sprawling green grounds of Delhi University, Chandrawal village is a tight knit community stuck in time. Tight knit literally and not just metaphorically, owing to its dense fabric in the otherwise well planned neighborhood of Kamala Nagar. It is flanked by the rich on the right, Kamala Nagar on the left, and DU campus on the north. Like the many other urban villages in Delhi, Chandrawal is an urban village caught in the stampede of haphazard development of ambitious aspirations. The village is constituted mostly of the Gujar community, who hold a decadent past of the evolution of their settlement in the area. What makes Chandrawal a promising study is the striking contrast of morphology and character it holds with its immediate surroundings. For those of us who have visited this area or have visited Kamlanagar or DU for a shopping spree would not even be aware of the presence of this village, which is right in the middle of the neighborhood. Closely packed houses and dingy lanes. It is a sight either plastered at the entrance by advertisements or subconsciously evaded by the shopper's eye. The earliest existence of the Gujar community of the Chandrawal village can be traced back to the early 19th century, where the village had sprawled from Ridge to Yamuna. After losing their lands to the British East India Company in 1930s, they confiscated and sold the village. This forced the villagers to move north, post 1947 they were hemmed in by the state-sponsored colonization of the partition refugees of Kamlanagar. Our cities are often not planned to keep the traditional vocations, lifestyles, and idiosyncrasies in mind. There are instances in the 1960s where the Gujars of Chandrawal often were seen to herd their cattle in the unkempt western lawns of the Delhi School of Economics back then. To understand the essence of the urban village, it is crucial that the context is also considered. So around 1930s, around the same time that Gujars were displaced, the Birlas from Ahmedabad had come for the purpose of trading in this area and constructed the textile mills. As Delhi University also flourished 2 decades later and youth from across the country came here to study, multiple PGs came up due to its lower rents, and that is how Chandrawal also became a hub for all the PGs to host the students studying in DU. Taking a walk in the village, one will feel like they've come miles away from the planned neighborhood of KAMALA Nagar. The balconies in these dingy lanes of the neighborhood face each other and overlook the activities happening in between. These activities include young boys playing marbles or PUBG on their phones, girls playing badminton, women haggling with vegetable vendors and tailors, and men loitering on a chalk formed by the organic structure of lanes or youth chatting on their bikes. While the residents of Chandrawal village suffer from basic facilities, women continue to be the more vulnerable group in the area. Leslie Kern, in her book Feminist Cities, says that cities are designed by men for men. And today we stand at a cusp of change, where these traditional villages have a scope of being designed more sensitively before they get converted to wards. There's an aspect of territoriality associated with the residents, especially among the women. That is, they feel belonged, like it's their territory inside the Chandrawal village. When asked if they feel safe in the neighborhood, 9 out of 10 women aged between 14 to 48 said they felt safe as everyone knew them and they knew everyone, which made them feel safe. But furthermore, they weren't even aware, let alone have visited the Spark Mall, which is less than a kilometer away. This speaks volumes about the psychological barriers created by socioeconomic differences in the neighborhood. The mapping done here is through various parameters which create vulnerability in Chandrawal in women and the surrounding area, which disrupt the seamless movement of women. Coming to understanding some of the reasons why this happened, the division of courtyards, as seen on the left, horizontal and vertical, decreased the quality of life as the family gathering spaces were eliminated. But this transition was most felt by the women and families who lost their space to move in the house. As men conventionally moved out of the house for work, the courtyards were a place for women to gather, talk, cook, and loiter. And after speaking to a few women in Chandraval, I was able to gauge how there is some orthodox thinking associated with allowing the woman to go out of the house without purpose. So women don't loiter, as Shilpa Phadke says in her book, Why Loiter? So thus the housing typology changed from of these G plus 2, G plus 3 buildings as the courtyards got horizontal jalis and then eventually became commercial hubs on the lower floor. Due to this, as mentioned before, the women lost their spaces to loiter. Sheila, a 37-year-old resident of Chandraval, was one of the interviewees. She is a domestic help and works in 5 houses in the nearby neighborhoods. She cooks meals for her family early in the morning and after dropping her children in the local government school, leaves on foot to the first house of work. She cleans, dusts, and cooks after a long day of work and returns to her house before sundown. When asked about her idea of leisure in the public realm, she laughs and she says she doesn't have the time for leisure. This time poverty is often created due to the burden of work associated with gender roles. Anjali, a 19-year-old girl, is seen sitting on an otla outside with her friends, outside a friend's house with her phone. She keeps looking up and glancing every 5 minutes to see if anyone is looking at her. Talking to her, she expresses her concern for the lack of spaces to actually go out with her friends because they cannot afford it. Speaking to her also brought out the issue of excessive eyes on street, which leads to moral policing. The densely packed neighborhood of Chandraval is perceived as unsafe by other residents and floating population of shoppers who come here. This is because of the stark morphological character that exists. Women usually move with a sense of purpose. What happens due to this is because that the women who come from outside find Chandraval as a blind spot of inaccessibility and either have to take a longer route or take a male member with them to cross the village. This movement patterns thus become distances instead of displacements and prevent holistic development of the neighborhood. Thus, I would like to conclude by saying that Chandraval village, like most urban villages, have a constant fight for open space in the dense fabric it stands in. The women in the village aren't able to enjoy access to open space outside, despite Kamlanagar being a woman dominated neighborhood owing to its street shopping. This makes one wonder how urban design strategies aren't just context sensitive but time sensitive too. If an action isn't taken now, it will fall prey to substandard ephemeral changes in accordance with its neighboring developments. Firstly, documentation of the community, Gujjars in this case, needs to be done to understand their lifestyle. This will help in inculcating design elements as a part of urban design guidelines, which will propagate these activities. This does not contradict development, such social assessments, but rather accentuates it. Lastly, understanding the vulnerabilities of women as a stakeholder in the transformation of urban villages and having surveys, FDGs to facilitate contextual spaces for them in the existing dense fabric or the new fabric of development. Since most of them suffered from time poverty, exploring shared streets as a concept to make the main spines or the main routes along Spark Mall, for example, can be made only walkable with women friendly infrastructure. This will make the journey of women from residential colonies to their homes in Chandrawal a more enjoyable experience and allow them to loiter on the streets rather than formally organized spaces. Thank you very much.